Hey, this Wednesday, as we find ourselves smack dab between two big holidays in our country, it's kind of an awkward time of the year because it's like, is it work time? Is it off time? I don't know. It's different for different people, and I think it couldn't be a better time to discuss this kind of awkward verse here in Luke chapter 5, verse I think it's 14. It seems like we get some conflicting information in that, and I just think it's a good time to talk through it. So let's go ahead and dig in. It says, Then Jesus instructed him, who is this leper that he just healed, not to tell anyone what had happened. He said, Go to the priest and let him examine you. Take along the offering required in the law of Moses for those who have been healed of leprosy. This will be public testimony that you have been cleansed. So, okay, Jesus is saying, hey, don't tell anybody about that miracle that just happened that Jason covered last week. The whole leprosy deal. It was a big deal back then. These people were outcast and taken away from all their relationships, their family, and everything. And Jesus healed the guy and said, hey, don't tell anybody. And, a lot of times you think, well, Jesus had to know people were going to find out. Why would he say that? Or maybe he didn't know. Well, looking through it this past week, I think, Jesus did know, but Jesus was focused on his mission. You see, it wasn't about healing people one at a time. Leprosy was considered not only a physical condition, but a spiritual condition. And if we think of leprosy as sin, Jesus is like, I'm not in a little bit here. You don't know it, but I'm going to heal everybody. Not only just people living now, but people that have ever lived and will ever live. And Jesus was focused on that bigger mission where he was kind of telling the leper, a former leper, you just keep it under your hat because I don't want all these people flooding me to distract me from my real mission. And this is all fine and good, but, looking through this, I'm thinking application. What's the application? How can we use this in our life? And looking at the second part where he says, go to the priest, let him examine you, and then do what's required in the law of Moses. In the law of Moses, in Leviticus 14, deals a whole chapter with what happens when someone gets cured of leprosy. And only God could cure people of leprosy, and they knew this. So, I gotta believe it happened occasionally, but not that much. So this was a big deal. When Jesus said, go to the priest and basically adhere to the law, he was again being Jesus, doing exactly what Jesus does, right? He heals us, but yet living perfectly, he's the only one that could adhere to the law. So he was telling this former leper, hey, you need to do what God requires in the law and go to the priest and do what's outlined in Leviticus 14, which was abiding by the law. Now, when you go there, obviously people are going to see that this has happened. And again, it's only a thing that God can do. God has changed your life. And Leviticus 14 deals with restoring those relationships that were lost due to this disease of leprosy. So, again, you might say, going back to leprosy being sin, when God cures us of our sin problem, it brings back our relationship not only with Him, but with others. So, going into the next part, this will be a public testimony. You don't have to tell people what Jesus did in your life. They're going to see it. I mean, we talk about this all the time here, that an encounter with Jesus leads to a changed life. And that last part there, that this will be a public testimony that you have been cleansed. So again, getting back to this is all fine and good information, but what does it mean for you? What does it mean for me in our everyday life? And I think that's the part I want to zero in, is it'll be a public testimony that you have been cleansed. I can sit here and tell you how Jesus has changed my life, and that's certainly part of it. But As we all have heard the phrase, actions speak louder than words. So as we move into New Year's here this weekend, let's think for this coming year, what kind of actions is God calling me to do in my life that people might see him through me? And just do that. It's not about us telling people what we're going to do or what we did. It's about what is God doing right now in our hearts, and how is that motivating us in this world to do things to glorify God. That's why Jesus came here, to restore that relationship with us, but also to glorify God. And that's why we're all created, is to glorify God. So going into the new year here, let's really focus in, zero in on that. What kind of actions, not words, can we do this coming year that's going to glorify God and point people to him, so that they might see the miracles that he does each and every day in our hearts? You have a happy new year, and we'll catch you next week on Wednesday Wisdom.